This year has been jam-packed with game after game, so much so that I've barely been able to keep up with every single release. But having played a sizable portion of this year's JRPG offerings, I've finally reached a decision for what is my definitive game of the year. So yes, we are here. Everybody, yeah, okay, hold the applause. I know you're finally excited to see me with my hair slicked back, dressed up, but unfortunately, I'm not wearing any pants. But there has been so many games this year, and I'm super excited to chat about my favorite releases of the year and finally find my true game of the year 2024. It's going to be a good one, so make sure you stay tuned. Before we get to that, as always, don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're not already, and comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on the releases for this year's games and what game is your definitive game of the year. This is going to be an exciting video. I've been looking forward to it all year. It's going to be fun. Now, before we get to the game of the year, the true winner this year, I'm going to be breaking down all the nominees, why I liked them, and why I think they could be the true game of the year. So yeah, I need to be quick because this space that I've rented here for the unofficial Game of the Awards costs a lot of money. Let's go. So let's kick off the nominees with Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. So this was the first major release of the year in terms of JRPGs, and this is something that I was kind of looking forward to. Now, I've obviously gone off and played every single Yakuza game this year, but at this point, I had only played Like a Dragon, so Infinite Wealth was technically my second game in the series. And my first playthrough, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was kind of okay overall. There was a lot that I missed because I didn't have reference for the entire series, but it inspired me to go play every single game of the series, and then I went back and played Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth after playing every single game. So I had a heck of a lot more context, and it allowed me to understand more of Kiryu's story, and I explored all the side content for Kiryu and finishing all his dragon memories or memoirs, whatever they're called. It was amazing. I think having proper context for this game really sold this for me. I'd say that the story overall was compelling enough. I think on second playthrough, again, having context for the whole story and Kiryu's stuff made it a little bit more worthwhile. I think that I prefer Kiryu to Ichiban. Ichiban's cool, he's very happy-go-lucky, but I just prefer Kiryu's arc and him as a character. But story aside, I liked playing somewhere different. Of course, they can't have every single Yakuza game in Kamurocho or Yokohama. Setting it somewhere else makes sense, and Hawaii is a big tourist or holiday destination for Japanese people. So yeah, I thought it was cool to explore this area. In terms of gameplay, it was awesome. There was so much side content. The turn-based battle system leveled up more or less from Like a Dragon. And of course, we had the addition of some job roles and stuff. So it was a very full to the brim game that I just played for story only. But there's so much here. I mean, there really is infinite wealth of things to do in this game. So this is something that could take you minimum 30 hours just for story only, or you could go well over 100 if you're going to flesh out the entire world and really fill out your adventure. So Infinite Wealth was a really great game, one of my favorites of the year, and yeah, easily a nominee for my game of the year. So that's the first nominee for this year, Infinite Wealth. Fantastic game, just don't play the English dub. You're making a total mistake if you play any of the Yakuza games in English. Trust me. So let's move on to the second game, one of the most anticipated games probably of the decade thus far. Coming up next is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This was a game that I could not wait for. As soon as I rolled credits on Final Fantasy VII Remake, literally I could not wait until the next story, the next chapter in what is now going to be a remake trilogy. Immediately the game hooks you in with some new stuff involving Zack, and it's not really a spoiler because he's on the box art, so you're going to expect some more stuff. And there's a lot that was set up within Remake that was more or less answered in Rebirth. But in terms of story, man, I tell you what, there's a lot more questions that I have than I did going into it, and I suppose that's a good thing. That really sets us up for that massive question of what's next, what's going to happen. I really enjoyed every bit of the story. There wasn't anything that I felt was a little bit flat or, was pretty mid, as, all you kids on TikTok say. There was a lot that I felt that I was pretty satisfied with. Of course, the ending, I feel like I'm a little bit down on, but I'm pretty sure that was intentional. Let me know if you agree with that point. But story overall, everything was just beautifully realized. There was a lot that I couldn't wait to see, like, some of the date scenes or Barrett and Dine's scene, or even Vincent. I mean, all this stuff was fleshed out pretty well. And this was a story that I rushed through in about 33 hours. I finished the game as quickly as I could because I didn't want it spoiled. Of course, after finishing the game, I went and pretty much almost tripled my play time by filling out the map and doing all the other side quests. So gameplay wise, there was a lot to do. I really enjoyed the battle system. It was a really great evolution from the remake battle system. There's a lot to love. The interplay between all the characters, the builds that you can do for the characters in terms of materia and all this other stuff, it felt very satisfying for a long-time Final Fantasy fan like myself. Now, a lot of you have complained online about the Ubisoftness, more or less, of exploring the map. And you know what? This is a very rare case of I didn't mind it. Normally for a game that I might not like as much, I would probably find it annoying or cumbersome, but I was absolutely 100% hooked into the story of the world and the gameplay from the moment that I put the disc in. So I was happy to do whatever was presented with me, whether it was filling in intel for Chadley or doing some of the Gilgamesh side quests. There was so much to do. And don't even get me started on Queen's Blood. That was incredibly addicting. Overall, with the mini games, the gameplay, the story, and the incredible music, which actually did win an award at the Game of the Year awards this year, it was a total package for me, and I loved this game and really just left me wanting more. So, part 3 for the remake trilogy cannot come soon enough. So, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, absolutely shining brighter than the reflection of the ring light in my glasses. Fantastic game. Love that game so much. Let's move on to the next game, a game that is maybe actually a true metaphor for a lot of things. Metaphorically, whatever. Metaphor ReFantazio was another incredible game this year. This was one that was not on my radar at all. I wasn't hyped for it. I just didn't really realize that it was coming out till I saw some buzz about it on Twitter. I decided to apply for a review code. I got the code and I went into the game totally blind, never having played any Persona or Shin Megami Tensei games prior to this. This is a totally new Atlas game for me. I've not played these games before. So if we want to start up with the story, I think what was there was pretty okay. A lot of people online have said this is the best thing ever, and a lot of other people have said that it's pretty mid. It kind of fell in the middle for me. I really appreciate what they did in terms of world building and story building, but it just never hooked me for some reason. And it's one of those games that I said in my review of it that if it doesn't hook you within 10 or 20 hours, it's not going to hook you by the 60 or 70 hour mark like it didn't for me. And that's not to say that it was a bad game or a bad story. I think it just never landed with me. I was never 100% invested in it. That being said, I was interested in the story enough to see it through. The king is dead, and then of course there's this gauntlet to fight for who's the king, the next king, this competition for who's going to be the king, and then you get the support of the people and your friends to rally around you. Then you realize there's this big bad trying to assert his dominance in the kingdom and become the king, and you have to fight against that. You could argue that yes, a lot of it was predictable. It was kind of anime and kind of tropey in my opinion, but I think I liked it. I went back and watched my Metaphor review, and I think I was maybe a little bit too harsh on the story. It was okay. I'd probably give the story a 7.5 out of 10 if I was going to, give it a numeric score. But the thing that I really did enjoy was the gameplay, the turn-based gameplay with the archetype system, essentially the job system. The gameplay loop was very fun and very addicting. I found it incredibly cool and rewarding to run through these dungeons and cut down these enemies and level up and find the treasure and do the thing at the end of the dungeon with the boss fights and stuff, and swapping your characters and figuring out who's best for each role. And with the archetype system, there was a lot to explore and a lot to have fun with and immerse yourself with, essentially. The one thing that I think kind of went against the game for me was the in-game clock, finding events to do, trying to find things to do to pass time. There's a certain point towards the end of the game where you're left with 28 days to do stuff to try and fill in time, and I just felt like the game, especially towards the end portion of the game, dragged a little bit for me. And having gone online, a lot of people kind of agree with this. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I didn't approach the game correctly. Again, I've never played an Atlas JRPG before, so totally new to this. I liked the art style. It was very cool and unique. The music, while not my favorite style of music, really fit this style of game. I think in terms of like presentation and gameplay, this is really cool and unique, having never really played something like this before. So I can definitely appreciate it. And if they ever come out with a second Metaphor game, I would be interested in it enough to play it day one. I think that there's something here that could be fixed for a second game or refined for a second game. So I'm interested to see what's next for Metaphor. I think it was cool, it was great, but maybe not like the best thing ever, like a lot of people are saying. Wow, we've had some great games so far. Now, before we get to that, I cannot forget to thank the sponsor of this video. You guys, because you guys subscribe and like these videos on a weekly basis. But did you know that 92% of the people that watch this channel are not subscribed? It is a massive percentage of people that watch this content and don't leave a like or subscribe. It's free, it helps the channel a lot, and plus you get access to some really cool weekly JRPG themed videos. And speaking of getting access to, I'd like to give a special shout out to these people here just next to me for subscribing and joining the channel and getting access to some really cool badges, emotes, Discord tiers, and some other cool rewards as well. So if you guys want to support the channel, join the channel memberships. I would love to have you along. So anyway, back to the awards. Now, the next game is going to be a fantastic JRPG that some of you guys might say is the true game of the year. Next up is Dragon Quest III HD 2D. Now, a lot of you guys love this game, love this series. Dragon Quest is a series that I've never really touched aside from Dragon Quest XI on the Switch, which was an amazing 80-hour experience. So I was really looking forward to playing one of the old school JRPGs, of course, one of the founding father JRPGs, Dragon Quest. And of course, Dragon Quest III, canonically, is the first game in the series. It sets up pretty much the events of 1 and beyond, I guess. But this was really cool. I loved the story. While it was basic, there was just enough there that was drip fed to you throughout the game to kind of fuel the fire essentially as you go. The story more or less is secondary to the gameplay, which is why you play these kind of games. This is a grindy kind of game. This is a very old school JRPG because, of course, the original game came out in like 1988 or 89, so you could definitely feel that. Those bones are here. They're still present within this new release in 2024, and that's totally okay, and the game owns that and wears it quite proudly. The gameplay loop here was incredibly addicting. Getting in different fights and, grinding on metal slimes, there was just something about it that was just like incredibly therapeutic. I really loved just putting on the game, putting on like a long form YouTube video or something like that, just watching that or listening to that and just grinding away in the background, just fighting metal slimes, trying to level up my characters. That was really, really fun. And I also like the introduction of the job system here, the class system for the characters that you can experiment with, and then you do your upgrades. You can upgrade from like a mage to a warrior or something like that. So there's a lot of flexibility with what you can do in terms of your characters. If you're not happy with your base stuff, upgrade them. I mean, after level 20, you can go to All Trades Abbey, upgrade your characters, and away you go. It is a fairly straightforward, basic kind of bare bones JRPG if you want to look at it like that. But it's really fun. It's really rewarding. And, I put 30 or so hours into it, and I felt like I got my money's worth. I've seen a lot of people online also complaining that this game is a cash grab. It's cheap. It's not worth full price. Like, I really disagree with that. This is a game that's been redesigned from the ground up, obviously, to copy a game that came out back in the late 80s. There's a lot of new stuff here. There's new art assets. Some of the gameplay stuff is new. I just don't really agree with that. This was a fun package. I spent full price, like 70 Australian dollars on this, and I think I got my money's worth. This was a great, fun game. And a lot of you people say, JRPG comfort food. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah, you heard it here. Dragon Quest, maybe not quite Final Fantasy, but neither is this next game. I mean, it's close. It's pretty close to Final Fantasy, actually. And lastly on the nominees list is going to be Fantasian. This game came out less than 2 weeks ago as of this video. And you know what? I really have enjoyed my time with Fantasian. I played it a couple of years ago when it first came out on iOS. This game was split into 2 parts. We had Fantasian Part 1 that came out in like April of 2021, and then we had Part 2, I think, come out in August or October of 2021. Now we have the full thing available. This was a really fun game. The story is pretty cool. It starts fairly linearly. It's a bit of a slow burn at the start, but once you get there, it does open up. The story makes sense. The characters are great and compelling. I love the why of the game. It's pretty cool. It's just a unique game from the creator of Final Fantasy. So this is something that you definitely don't want to miss if you like these old school JRPGs. If you like that PlayStation 1 JRPG vibe, this is going to be your version of JRPG comfort food. I've really been enjoying this. So aside from the story, the gameplay is really fun as well. Of course, it's your typical turn-based stuff, but you can tweak your environments and what you can do with the battle system by curving attacks or doing stacked attacks, slash attacks that can go through different enemies.
It's very fun and very rewarding. The dimension system makes it fun to stack 30 enemies at a time and do these giant battles where you can just plow through hordes of enemies. And there are other instances where you can fight up to 50 or 100 enemies at a time. It's very cool. And like I said, with this game being split into 2 parts, part 1 is pretty linear and part 2 opens up to be a little bit more quest oriented. You can kind of do your own thing at your own pace. Obviously, some things are level restricted, so you have to do certain things in a certain order, more or less, but yet it still kind of is open-ended. And this is a beautiful game, honestly, beautiful game. I love the diorama art here. It really just gives it a storybook feel, almost reminiscent of Final Fantasy IX. A lot of you guys have commented that on my last video talking about Fantasian. And yeah, I do agree with that. It's a beautiful game. And of course, with the score by Uematsu, really makes this game complete for me. And I've seen some of you guys say you don't want to buy this because it's a mobile game. Honestly, just because it came out on Apple devices doesn't mean that it's a mobile game per se. It's not like your typical mobile game. This feels like a console experience. Yes, some of the UI is a little bit clunky, and yes, there are some camera panning issues, but overall, this is a really great, fun game. And if you like old school JRPGs, tell you what, this has got to be it. You got to play it.
Okay guys, it's finally time. I know you're excited to see what my pick is for the game of the year. I've got the results right here in my hands. But of course, before we do that, let me know your winner. I'm interested to know what games you guys played this year and what games really truly resonated with you guys this year, because there's a lot that came out, some of which I haven't played, some of which didn't gel with me that I didn't really talk about. But hey, let me know your thoughts. So this year's Game of the Year award goes to, hang on, I gotta open my makeshift paper to make it look like I'm actually reading something. The winner is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Like I said, this game is the complete package. It's been a while since I've played a game where I put the disc in or put the cartridge in and I am absolutely hooked from start to finish. And enough so that I play the game and I pretty much play the entire game. I fill out all the stuff on the map. I do all the side quests. I fill in everything because I cannot get enough of the game and the world and the characters. I loved all the extra added stuff as well to help flesh out this world that was originally restricted to a PlayStation 1 game. I just cannot believe that they were able to not necessarily inflate it, because inflate it or, bloat it isn't really the right term, but just fill it out in a way where it makes the world more believable, more lived in. And the gameplay, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's perfect. The interplay between characters, battle system is just amazingly cooked. It's been well developed. You can tell that they took what happened in Remake and just enhanced it in a way that just really makes sense. And a lot of people would say that should be the way forward for the future of Final Fantasy. Would that actually happen? I don't know, but I cannot wait for Part 3's combat system. How are they going to improve on that? How can they make this better? It really just hit everything for me. This game is perfect and easily is my game of the year and has been so since it came out.
So that's it for the Game of the Year awards. Of course, the unofficial awards. Is it, maybe a high production as the True Game Awards? It gets close. Is it less cringe? Yes, it is, and that's all that matters. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I've had a lot of fun making videos with you guys each week, hearing what you guys have to say, hearing all the games you've been playing. We played so many great games this year. I'm looking forward to a prosperous JRPG-filled 2025. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye, everybody.